has seen countless battles. But there are some moments in history where the scale of destruction, the level of suffering, and the intensity of human endurance reach a point that feels almost impossible to comprehend. And among those moments stands what many consider the most brutal battle ever fought, the Battle of Stalingrad, a conflict so intense that it turned an entire city into a battlefield. Survival itself became the only goal, and victory came at a cost so high that it changed the course of the entire war. The city of Stalingrad, once filled with life, industry, and movement, was transformed into a landscape of destruction as forces from Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union clashed in a fight that would become one of the deadliest in history, where buildings were reduced to rubble, streets became killing zones, and every inch of ground was fought over with relentless determination. The battle did not begin as something that seemed impossible. It began as part of a larger strategy, a push toward control and dominance. But what followed quickly turned into something far beyond planning, something that neither side could easily escape. As the German forces advanced toward the city, they expected resistance, but not the kind they encountered, because the Soviet defenders did not fight in a way that allowed for quick victory. Instead, they turned the city itself into a weapon, using its ruins, its structures, and its narrow spaces to slow down and exhaust the advancing army. The fighting became incredibly close, sometimes taking place within the same building, with different floors controlled by opposing sides, creating a situation where danger existed just a few steps away at all times. There were no clear front lines, in a traditional sense, only fragmented zones of control that shifted constantly, making it difficult to even define where one side ended and the other began. Soldiers moved through broken walls, collapsed structures, and destroyed streets, knowing that at any moment they could encounter the enemy face to face. The brutality of the battle was not just in the violence, but in the environment itself. Because the city had been reduced to a place where survival was a constant struggle, where food and supplies were limited, where the weather added another layer of hardship, and where exhaustion became as dangerous as the enemy. Winter brought freezing temperatures that made already difficult conditions even worse, turning simple tasks into challenges and forcing soldiers to endure not just combat, but the environment itself. Despite all of this, neither side was willing to give up, because the city had become more than just a strategic location. It had become a symbol, something that both sides believed they could not afford to lose. As the battle continued, its scale grew, drawing in more forces, more resources, and more determination, until it reached a point where it was no longer just a battle for control, but a test of endurance, a question of who could hold on longer, who could continue fighting despite the overwhelming cost. And through all of this, the city continued to crumble, its structures collapsing under constant bombardment, its streets filled with the evidence of what had taken place, creating a scene that was almost beyond recognition, a place where the normal rules of war seemed to no longer apply. As time passed, the situation grew even more intense, because what had started as an advance turned into a trap, as Soviet forces launched a massive counteroffensive that surrounded the German army within the city, cutting them off from supplies and reinforcements, turning the battlefield into a place where escape became nearly impossible and survival depended on holding out against conditions that continued to deteriorate. The encircled forces found themselves in a situation where every day became harder than the last, where food ran out, ammunition became limited, and the cold became an enemy that could not be fought in the same way as a human opponent. The psychological pressure of being surrounded added another layer to the brutality, because it removed any sense of control, replacing it with uncertainty and desperation. Soldiers who had once advanced with confidence now found themselves holding defensive positions, trying to survive in a city that offered no safety, no clear path forward, and no easy way out. The fighting did not stop, even as conditions worsened, because both sides continued to push, continued to fight for every position, every building, every piece of ground that could provide even a slight advantage. The intensity of close combat remained, with engagements taking place at extremely short distances, where reactions had to be immediate and hesitation could be fatal. At the same time, the larger scale of the battle continued to unfold, with massive movements of troops outside the city influencing what happened inside it, creating a complex situation where individual moments and large-scale strategy were constantly connected. The suffering reached levels that were difficult to measure, not just in terms of losses, but in terms of what those involved had to endure, because the battle forced people to exist in conditions that went far beyond normal human limits. where survival itself became an achievement. And when the end finally came, it did not come suddenly. It came as a slow realization that the situation could no longer continue, that the forces trapped within the city could not hold out any longer, and that the outcome had been decided not by a single moment, but by the accumulation of everything that had happened over time. The surrender marked the end of one of the most brutal battles in history, but it also marked a turning point, because it shifted the momentum of the war in a way that would have lasting effects far beyond the city itself. The landscape that remained was almost unrecognizable, a place where destruction had reshaped everything, leaving behind a powerful reminder of what had taken place. And in the years that followed, the Battle of Stalingrad came to represent more than just a military conflict. It became a symbol of endurance, of the extreme conditions that humans can face, and of the reality of war at its most intense, a moment where everything was pushed to the limit, and where the outcome changed the course of history in a way that would never be forgotten.